Welcome to Shift from Burley and Wharfdale Methodist Church. In this series, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories, we're looking at people who have made a difference. Sometimes this can be on the national or international stage, but equally important are the stories of those who've made an impact at the local level. As we look at ordinary people who have made an extraordinary difference, we're really honoured to begin with Mary Wood. Some of you may know Mary through her tireless support of Christian Aid and for her work with the Burley Tereli Friendship Trust, a project that has resulted in the empowerment of a community in Mali through environmental projects, medical care, education and more. Mary is a wonderful example of someone in our community who has spent her life looking outward, putting others first, and showing what love looks like in action. Let's see what she has to say.
It's a beautiful sunny day for Mary and I to have a conversation about her work, and we are so happy to have you joining us for Shift. Mary, how are you today?
Oh, very well, and thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful to have you here. Mary, I don't know if you remember, but I think you were one of the first people to actually speak to me when my family arrived in Burley 5 years ago.
I do. It was the Burley show, and we had a Burley Tereli Friendship Trust stand with an environmental project showing the sand dunes and sand reclamation, and you came up and the two boys.
It was just so wonderful. We were freshly arrived from Africa, and to see across the hall this lovely display that was clearly an African landscape, and to hear your passion for the work that you are doing. Mary, would you like to tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, just about yourself and then about the Burley Tereli Friendship Trust?
Well, I obviously live in Burley. We moved here in 1974. I married to John. He goes to the Catholic Church, and as you know, I'm at the Methodist Church. We had two boys, Christopher and Richard. Christopher lives just outside London, and Richard lives in Burley, so that's lovely. And when we first moved, the very first weekend, we went into Burley, and there was coffee morning. And we went to it, and it was a Christian Aid coffee morning, and Sylvia Robinson was there. And when she heard that we had collected for Christian Aid in Portsmouth, we were roped in straight away that very first weekend. and you know, she invited us to lunch the next day, and we were just made so welcome. And Christian Aid became part of our lives as soon as we came into Burley. And it was through Christian Aid that led to our involvement with Tereli. Well, we did a lot of work in schools and took, for example, harvest material in. And towards the end of the 80s, there was some harvest material called Waste Not, Want Not. And we took it into Burley Middle School, and that was the start of a recycling project. And for 10 years that ran. Every month, newspapers would be put out and collected. And it raised a lot of money, about £22,000. And children decided where it would go, and some went to Mali. And Christian Aid suggested that it was used for wells in the Dogon region. And a little while after that, we received drawings. I don't know whether you'd be able to sort of see. And this was drawing of a well done by a boy. And when the staff went out, they gave my name and address. And the next thing we knew, we'd had letters from some of these youngsters that had done these drawings. And then it was just before the millennium, Channel 4, Jon Snow had this idea about from a Millennium Initiative. Wouldn't it be good if we got to know people that share the same time of day as us, including Mali, and Christian Aid encouraged us to get involved with community linking. And we thought, well, if we're going to do this, we would link with the village of the boy that had done these drawings.
Okay.
You know, so it wasn't anything that was planned. It was just amazing how these things fell into place. And Christian Aid asked if I'd go for January 2000.
So you went to Mali at that time?
Yes, it was right at the start of the millennium. And the focus was to see what it was like being a woman and the work that a woman did in the village. And just to get to know the people. It was nothing about projects.
Okay.
It was just sharing life with these wonderful people who made us so welcome. And you know, I carried water and pounded millet, and I was hopeless. I sort of, you know, I had a little pot like this, but I'd seen a woman making a pot, spending the whole afternoon, and I was so frightened I'd break it. And clambering over rocks, because it's sand and rocks, carrying water, I was just full of admiration for Yasmin, what she could do. But that was, you know, that was the start. And then we received wonderful drawings from youngsters in a lot of them, you know, their everyday life, going to school. You know, you can see them with the knapsacks on. And,
oh, that's wonderful.
You know, and this is a wonderful resource. And we wanted to share what they had sent us, and it was somebody within our church, Joyce Wyatt, who suggested we did a calendar. And that very first calendar, we were worried in case we were going to land ourselves in debt. But in actual fact, we produced 1,000. We called in favours from everybody to buy them, and it produced enough money. And when we asked what they'd like to do with it, a maternity was built for mothers so they could safely give birth. We hadn't planned to do any fundraising, but you know, it was through their resources coming to us in a way.
Wow,
That
so
empowered us.
Burley was given this opportunity to receive a beautiful calendar, and then that community was able to look after their mums.
Yeah, yes.
That's wonderful.
It was, and the whole way through, it's been two-way.
Yeah.
It's been this partnership of helping each other. That is really very, very important. But right from the start, it was about us all working together. I think it's mutual respect, isn't it, for each other. They have taught us so many things.
Did you find that some of the lessons that you learned there in the village in Mali, you actually brought here to Burley and lived them out in your day-to-day England life?
I mean, certainly they don't waste anything. And how they reuse things, and they have so little, and yet they share everything. And that is something that, you know, I could certainly learn from myself. And you know, at every stage we have learned things. Zachary, this boy that we first met, he was doing his baccalaureate, wanted to be a doctor. And we've just been inspired by him. And I think one of the lessons I've learned from him is all the problems that they face and how they overcome them and just get up. And one example of that would be when he was studying by candlelight. I don't know whether he'd fallen asleep, but he lost everything in a fire. Everything burnt. But after this fire, an email came, you know, and it wasn't about what he'd lost. It was thanking God that he was alive. And it was very humbling. And he just picked himself up and got on back with his studies, because he was alive and he was, you know, sort of well. And it nearly just seemed like a hurdle race where, you know, you get over one hurdle and, you know, then there's another, but you get over it, and you know, and I've learned a lot from that.
Did Zachary go on to complete his studies?
He completed in Bamako to become a doctor, but he wanted to specialise, so he wanted to go to Senegal and train as an oncologist, and he qualified. And this boy, you know, this drawing that from a very, very remote village in Mali, is now a surgical oncologist working in Bamako.
Are there any other lessons you'd like to share that you and the team have have learned through your relationships with the people of Tereli?
And that is to ask other people and not feel that you've got to do it all yourself. I was the last person on earth that should have been doing this because I don't speak French.
Okay.
I'd never travelled much, and yet, you know, it has worked well. You know, within the trustees, it's a team. It's certainly not me. It's a team effort, and everybody within the trustees, they've all brought different things. We've got trustees from all different churches, and what has been important to our Marlin friends at times when it's been difficult, just to know that people here are praying for them and that they're in their thoughts, that has meant a huge amount. And the chair of our trustees, Morella, as you probably knows, a retired minister from the United Reformed Church. All the different churches are involved, which is really, you know, sort of good. I think it's having a very open and honest relationship. That has been, and as I say, I think caring, showing that you care, and it's about caring for people here, caring for our supporters, as well as caring for our friends, and our friends in Mali care so much about us. They are really worried about COVID and the impact that's having here. And so they have been praying for people in Burley.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They sent condolences when Prince Philip died. You know, and it's that is really important in our relationship.
Yeah, a mutual compassion and
It
care.
is. That's the strength of it, really.
Am I right that Zachary actually visited the village at some stage?
He's been here 3 times.
3 times. Oh,
Yes,
that's wonderful.
Yes. And the whole village have made him welcome. At first it was the community council when he first came, and we had a friendship agreement. And I think this is the essence of it, isn't it? I mean, we are called Burley Tereli Friendship Trust. I think it's being there for each other.
Yeah, that's hospitality and mutuality.
Yes.
What inspires you as you care for others?
Along the way, I have met a lot of people that have inspired me. When we first got involved with Christian Aid, somebody called Richard Case was the area organiser, a wonderful, wonderful man. He engaged people. But I'm also, you know, sort of, it's people in the village, you know, their willingness to help us. That is inspiring, isn't it? There have been people, we've all got different talents, and I think this is one of the things that people have used so many different talents. Little sort of jumpers that a lot of people have knitted, and it isn't just that this is a jumper that obviously is much needed by the maternity, but Rhoda keeps them for when young mums to be come, so she can check them out. And that encourages them. And if there's going to be a problem, hospital is a long way away, and they would get them, because otherwise a mum in labour would have to be carried on a stretcher up an escarpment to an ambulance, a motorcycle ambulance that we bought, to then get them to hospital. So something as little as this can have a huge impact by encouraging people to be checked out, young mums.
And it looks like you've got something
And
else over here.
This is an ongoing project at the moment, and Vanessa brought this idea. I mean, if I show you inside, it's a pillowcase. There's the envelope there that you'd have put your pillow in.
Yeah.
The bottom of the pillowcase. And this ribbon, it was round a cake when we were celebrating 20 years. Took the ribbon off the cake.
And there's a beautiful little dress for a girl.
Vanessa did a wonderful sort of like a Zoom, and it was like Blue Peter for adults. And she had every stage, and here's one I did earlier, and showed us every step. And there's a group making them at the moment.
And I would imagine that every person who's contributed in one way or another would share your experience of being blessed by their involvement just as much or perhaps even more than they're able to bless others.
I would hope so, yes. But
when you maybe hear of other people who would like to be involved or are inspired to reach out the way that the team has done, either here in Burley or perhaps anywhere on the globe, watching this shift, that say, you know, I want to make a difference, I want to touch the lives of others, I want to be with others, what advice would you give to people wanting to reach out?
Well, I think we've all got different talents and different strengths, and I think you sort of have to think what you enjoy doing, because I think if you enjoy doing something, you'll keep at it. Also, with a lot of things, there's a commitment, and there is a lot of hard work with some of these, and I think, you know, you have to be prepared at times, if you do make a commitment, you know, to do your best to follow it through. It's getting back to that word friendship again, isn't it? You know, you make friends for life, don't you? And I think, you know, that's it, you know, sort of, I mean, I don't often wear jewellery, but I put this on today because that was given to me, Dogaloo village chief, Zachary's father. You know, it isn't just about one or two of these youngsters that have done well, it's, you know, it's sort of, and some of the things they've given us, we have very precious. This is, in the library, there's a lovely, I know we can't go into the library at the moment, but a lovely carved door. But they have empowered us so much by some of the things that they have given us, which this tells all about their ancestors. Can you see? They all go back to certain tribes, and there, you see from there, and that's the next generation there. And then these are some of the animals, and there's a story. Everything they have, they've got such a rich culture. Might be poor materially, but rich with their culture.
Rich in culture and rich in generosity and rich in gratitude and rich in love.
Oh yes, yes, and our lives are being enriched. It's very, very much so. And I know I can say that on behalf of all the trustees, how much, what an amazing thing it has been. And as I say, we've been touched by their care, their consideration. We're very, very grateful for everybody, you know, sort of for the wonderful support. And I know our Dogan friends would want me to say that as well. And the word they would use is birapo. Thank you.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely.
You know, that is really important to them.
I just wanted to share some thoughts that came to me after this interview with Mary. Chico Mendes, a Brazilian environmentalist who was murdered in 1988 for his fight to stop the destruction of the Amazon rainforests, once said, "At first I thought I was fighting to save rubber trees. Then I thought I was fighting to save the Amazon rainforest. Now I realize I'm fighting for humanity." I think maybe there is something of an echo in that, in the story of the Burley Tereli Friendship Trust. What began with the environment at heart, recycled paper and plastic here in Burley and wells in the desert in Mali, it became so much more. It became a relationship, a friendship, love. The thing that connected the people of Tereli and the people of our village in 2000 was not just a shared position in relation to the sun. And maybe what connects us all is more than the soil beneath our feet, or than the trees in the forest, or the grain in the fields. Maybe what connects us is our shared humanity, the dignity and the worth that we are born with, whatever our circumstance. During this series of Shift, we're not only looking around our community for ordinary people with extraordinary stories, but we're also looking back at extraordinary stories from the past. And one of those stories is the story of a boy named George, born in the 1860s in America, a slave, to a man named Moses Carver. Slavery was abolished not long after, but as George had been separated from his parents as an infant, he continued to live with the Carvers and received an education. He called himself Carver's George. That is, until George met a woman named Maria Watkins. When he introduced himself to her that way, she told him that was not his name. From now on, she said, your name will be George Carver. I don't know whether George would have wanted to take on the surname of those who enslaved him. But I hear the story of his encounter with this woman who met a boy who called himself Carver's George. I see someone who respected his identity, not as a victim, not as someone in need, but as a man with a name and a purpose and a call. He never forgot what she told him. You must learn all you can, then go back out into the world and give your learning back to the people. And that he did. In spite of being turned away from many universities because he was black, in spite of not having money available, George became a profoundly gifted agricultural scientist with revolutionary strategies for sustainable farming. The value of some of them are maybe needed now more than ever. It had a lot to do with peanuts, but even more to do with people. George Carver was passionate about education. He designed a mobile classroom to take learning out to the farmers where they were. He taught his students about farming, but he also taught them about life. It was George Carver who proclaimed, "Where there is no vision, there is no hope." George Carver lived a life of love through action. He once said, "Start where you are, with what you have, and make something of it." Makes me think, if an English woman who speaks no French can build a friendship with women in Mali who speak no English, as they teach her how to balance a jar of water on her head. If a young boy from Tereli, a remote village, can build a friendship with people in Burley and Wharfdale by putting pencil to paper and drawing a well to say thank you. If a man born into slavery can be empowered by one person and then live a life that empowered countless people, surely there is nothing to stop me, nothing to stop you from reaching out. And when we want to make a difference in the world, it isn't about having extraordinary skills or upfront capital or expertise. It's not even about having a plan or speaking the right language or knowing what needs to be done. It is about listening sincerely, serving sacrificially, giving gifts wholeheartedly. It is about receiving gifts graciously, accepting help humbly. It's about bringing what you have, bringing who you are into friendship with others. And for me, the place where every friendship starts is from my friendship with God, who calls me by name and who calls me a friend and who entrusts to me a call to do my part to make the world a better place. George Carver was driven by his belief in God for the work that he did. He tells the story, "I was just a mere boy when converted, hardly 10 years old." He says, "There isn't much of a story to it. God just came into my heart one afternoon while I was alone in the loft of our big barn while I was shelling corn to carry to the mill to be ground into meal." And he said, "I climbed up into the loft, knelt down by the barrel of corn, and prayed as best I could. I do not remember what I said. I only recall that I felt so good. That was my simple conversion, and I have tried to keep the faith." Faith is one of those words that can have all sorts of connotations. Holy or somber or serious, fancy buildings, angelic choirs, ritual, righteousness. But what if faith, which sounds so far out of reach sometimes? What if when faith comes down to it, it's all about friendship? Friendship with the earth, friendship with others, and friendship with God, the source of it all.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song. this womb. You have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My tears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I am a child of I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In the darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. With my life laid down and surrendered now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. With my life laid down and surrendered now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after
Thank you, Mary and Wendy, for sharing with us today. If you'd like to know more about anything you've heard today, then please get in touch via our Facebook page, Shift-Burley in Wharfdale. Until next time, may God bless you in every large and small positive impact you make through your lives today and every day. Amen.